Thank you. Sedano. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December 20th edition of the St. Charles County Council meeting, our last meeting of this calendar year. We have got a lot to get through tonight, but we will start with our invocation. Thank you, Jeremy Mount from First Assembly Church, for coming back. We appreciate you being here, and our Pledge of Allegiance led by Nancy Schneider. Please stand and remove your caps.
Almighty God, we ask your blessings tonight to be on all who have gathered here, and especially upon those who have been called to lead this great county and the communities in which we live and we work. We thank you for our council members today and our county executive who have served with distinction and faithfulness during this contentious year. We give you thanks for this meeting tonight, for your purpose in it, for we know that when we gather together, you always have a divine agenda. We pray that you would grant us your wisdom tonight as we discuss the various items that are on this agenda. We need your wisdom. And we thank you for all those who have been called to be involved in the useful work of overseeing the city and the communities in which they represent. We ask that tonight you would remind us again that we're not only leaders, but we're also servants, and that it's our responsibility to lead our community in serving the common good of all people. We ask tonight that you would grant our council members wisdom as they govern the interests and the issues of our time. Give them a sense of welfare and the true needs of our people, and give them the confidence to do what works best for this great county. We ask and we thank you tonight that as we reflect for just a moment on the greatest gift that you've given us this Christmas season, the announcement of grace and goodwill to all mankind, that we would keep that in the frame of our minds as we discuss and come to the microphones, and as we hold ourselves accountable to this gift of grace. May we be reminded of the greatest gifts you've given us, the gift of freedom, the gift of family, and the gift of faith. We ask, Almighty God, for your blessings upon this meeting tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Joe Cronin.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Brazel.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Elam.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Hollander.
Here.
Councilmember Nancy Schneider.
Here.
Councilmember John White.
Here.
With that, I would entertain a motion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to move up Bill number 5019 to the top of the agenda.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So with that, I would invite the voting tenant member of the SCC Housing Commission and call her to the dais for the final vote on 5015. So Dorothy Sedano. Dorothy? And with that, Donna, would you please read the bill?
Bill number 5019, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute a subrecipient agreement with the Northeast Community Action Corporation, NECAC, to administer housing choice vouchers awarded to St. Charles County.
Any questions on this bill before we vote? Seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute a subrecipient agreement with the Northeast Community Action Corporation to administer housing choice vouchers awarded to St. Charles County. Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Tenant member Dorothy Sedano.
Yes.
And with that, the bill passes. Dorothy, thank you very much
Thank you.
for joining us. We wanted to give her the opportunity to get in and get out. Unique voting tonight. That was good. That was very funny. So with that, we would move on to public presentations and our 2022-2024 Transportation Improvement Plan. Ms. Brower, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. The only person I know who loves traffic.
I do love traffic. I don't think I'm the only person.
Well, that's true.
There's other traffic engineers out there. All right. Okay. It's not up yet, so I'm waiting for that. All right, there we go. All right, good evening, councilmen and councilwomen. Okay, this is the 2022 tip overview. I also just handed out some tip books. They have a little additional information. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, so if you have any questions, please stop me and ask questions. So I know we have a long agenda tonight. All right, so the history of the transportation sales tax. The county half-cent sales tax was enacted in 1985 and has been authorized 3 times in 1994, 2004, and 2012. The funds are used for traffic relief, roadway safety, and to construct and reconstruct and repair roads, bridges, and transportation infrastructure. The funds are recommended and administered by the county road board, and then the board members and the tip are approved by county executive and county council. Over the last 35 years, more than $1 billion in public transportation improvements have been constructed with the use of this tax. We have built and improved 1,110 lane miles of St. Charles County roads. This has resulted in a safer, more reliable system for travel, less congestion, and has been important as the county has grown, and the county has doubled in population over those 35 years. Where the money has gone. So this is a pie chart of the distribution between each of the cities and county, unincorporated county, as well as administrative costs for the tax. So you can see that it's very evenly distributed. O'Fallon has a little more population. They've gotten a little more of the tax. It seems to have been fairly distributed. This is also a map of all of the work that has been done throughout the county. These are roads we have touched with either a shouldering project or some type of improvement throughout the county. So it's almost every non-MoDOT route in the county has been touched with this fund. So the vision statement for the Transportation Improvement Plan is really just to provide for roadway improvements that make it easier for citizens to travel throughout the county efficiently and safely. And that's what we aim to do every time we make a new plan. The road board members are a great group, very engaged, and I just want to thank them for volunteering. I'm not going to read all their names, but they are very valuable assets to the county. I really enjoy working with them. The 2022 plan includes 18 projects and $57 million in total transportation improvements. $21.4 million of that are coming from the half-cent sales tax. We did very well with federal grants this year. We have $15.7 million on 13 of the projects coming from STP and CMAQ funds. And then another 3 projects have $13.4 million in MoDOT cost share funds. And one has both. This is the map of the projects for this year. It's hard to see, but you can see the green lines vaguely, and I'm going to go through each project. So, new road projects, we have 370 interchange ramps at St. Salt River Road in St. Peters. That's the picture on the top. They also already have funding for the ramp 1, so this will complete that full interchange. Crestview Drive extension in O'Fallon. Summers Road widening and improvements in O'Fallon. Plaza Way extension in St. Charles. This will complete the Plaza Way through the new development and connect that road back to Zumbel to provide more connectivity for those 2 developments that are very busy and draw a lot of traffic. Road condition projects. Westmeyer Road is a St. Charles County project going to Route T on the western end of the county. Maggie Road pavement rehabilitation is City of St. Charles, and Dushan Drive reconstruction is City of St. Charles. Those were 2 very big federal funded projects, so we have very little contribution there. Technology Drive improvements in Lake St. Louis. Traffic flow projects, Highway K at Highway N intersection improvements in O'Fallon. Weldon Spring Road Phase 1 in O'Fallon. Mid-Rivers Mall Drive at St. Peters Howell Lane improvements in St. Peters, and Route Z widening and signalization in Wentzville. And that one's one that had over $5 million in cost share, and we're going to try to go after a little more STP funds there too and see if we can knock a little bit more off of that, especially the city of Wentzville has $2.4 million in that currently, and we'd like to help them reduce that. Safety projects, Josephville Road in St. Charles County, and the Mexico Road improvements in Wentzville. They both have federal funds. And then bridge projects, also both with federal funds, are both county projects, Augusta Bottom Road Bridge and Femme Osage Creek Road Bridge. Safety, our goal with safety is to decrease crashes on all routes in St. Charles County. This heat map kind of shows where our crashes are. The main, locations are interchanges. And we've tried to do some work over the last several years to improve these. The Route K interchange we recently redid, and it is showing a safety improvement with that project. Right now, we're working on the interchange at 364 and 94, and we hope that that shows some safety improvements. And I-70 and I-64 out in Wentzville, we're working with MoDOT to try to move projects forward out there and help with those projects. Also, the bottom chart shows our crashes over the last 9 years. So you can see that we have kind of, stayed flat all along while our population has grown by over 40,000, 10% in that 10 years. So while we want to decrease crashes, our crashes per capita are really decreasing because we have gained population. So we're going to put in some initiatives and try to do a little more with this. Fatalities are mainly on MoDOT routes, but we're going to really look at the local routes and high crash locations and try to do some work to improve that in the county. Mobility, the 2020 annual regional congestion report showed this map of congestion in 2020 and the PM peaks, and it's really hard to see. And I don't know if I actually have okay, I don't. So it's really hard to see, but if you look at it closely, you can see that the congestion is at the Merrimack River Bridge of 44, which was a construction project. There's congestion on I-270 in North County, which was a construction project. There's congestion on the Blanchette Bridge coming into St. Charles County, which was a construction project. There's congestion along Illinois near the PSB, which was a construction project. And then there's congestion on I-64 and 170 southbound, which was a previous construction project, and really not much more can be done there. And then there's 270 in St. Louis County, which is also that area of kind of Manchester is also one that's been looked at, and there's not much you can do. And then there's 6470, the number one congestion in the region, and no construction. We had this during pandemic, volumes that were lower. So this is the number one priority of the region. We are pushing, we have the funding for the railroad bridge, and we are pushing to get funding for the interchange improvements because we know that it's just going to, when we fix the railroad bridge, it's just going to push that bottleneck back, and we need to make sure it's fixed for our residents so they're not still sitting in traffic. So our challenges in the future are the Wentzville curve. Like we said, it is funded. We need to get that done. The I-6470 interchange, also route in west of I-64. We're working with MoDOT to keep that effort moving. We've done the planning. We're working on design, and we're working on finding funds to make that project happen. Catching up on local roads. We've spent a lot on MoDOT routes over the last 10 or more years, and we need to catch up now that MoDOT has its own funding. And we need to work on pavement conditions throughout the county. So keeping your transportation dollars in motion, again, we've spent $122 million on MoDOT routes over the last 10 years on 32 projects, kind of helping the cities with issues they were having and trying to keep those projects moving because MoDOT had no funding. But now that they do, we need to use the sales tax to keep other major projects going that have been on hold. Future tax funds will help new local connections like David Hochul Parkway, Interstate Drive extension to Route T, Lake St. Louis Boulevard extension to Route DD, and many, many more. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Amanda? Yes, sir.
Comment. Most importantly to me, I contacted the cities that I represent in my district, and they said they were happy with you, and they said the road board was quite generous this year, so they got their projects approved that they were important to them. So in that respect, I just want to tell you thanks, you did a good job.
No problem.
I mean, on
Yep.
the Highway 70 project, are they removing the railroad bridge, or how are they doing that?
They are going to build, as far as I know, they're going to build a temporary railroad bridge, and then that will be used while they construct a new one in the same place as the old one is, that's wider and can handle 4 lanes, actually 5 lanes in each direction under it ultimately.
And then just straighten the whole thing out?
It's not really going to be straightened much. They found out the curve is not actually substandard. It's just that it gets so tight under there because there's not enough space for the lanes and there's so much traffic. So
Is the railroad kicking any money into that?
I do not know the answer to that.
We have a pretty good idea that it's no.
They're asking for dual tracks, and I don't know if that's happening, and I don't know if they're contributing, but yeah.
That bridge is as old as me, so for them to get a free one with no cost to them ain't quite fair to the people of this county, so.
Thank you very much for all
Thank
you
you.
do. We appreciate it. With that, that'll move us on to conditional use permits, bills for final passage, starting with bill number 5015.
Bill number 5015, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 21-17 for a 115-foot tall monopole telecommunication tower with adjustments to height, setback, and spacing standards set forth in Section 404.505A1 OSCCMO to Gerald L. Wolf and Sharon Wolf, property owners, and Selective Solutions LLC applicant.
So since our last meeting, the applicant has provided 2 documents to the council for consideration. One was part of the record already, the other was not. The council will accept the new document into the record for its consideration. Further, the applicant has made a representative of AT&T available for questions from the council. So with that, I would ask the council, do they have any further questions for the applicant or AT&T regarding bill number 5015? Seeing none, I would ask you to call the roll and motion of vote.
Bill number 5015, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 21-17 for a 115-foot tall monopole telecommunication tower with adjustments to height, setback, and spacing standards set forth in Section 404.505A1 OSCCMO to Gerald L. Wolf and Sharon Wolf, property owners, and Selective Solutions LLC applicant. Councilmember Brazel?
Nope.
Councilmember Hammond?
No.
Councilmember Elam?
No.
Councilmember Hollander?
No.
Councilmember Schneider?
No.
Councilmember White?
No.
Councilmember Cronin?
No.
And with that, bill number 5015 does not pass, which brings us up to bill number 5016.
Bill number 5016, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 21-18 for a bed and breakfast residence up to 8 guests per night to Chickadee Acres LLC, property owners, and Lisa Mallon, applicant.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to amend bill number 5016 and replace it with substitute bill 5016.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Before you say all in favor, I'm sorry, before you say all in favor, is there any discussion?
My bad. Thank you. And that's why she's here and makes the big bucks. So, any discussion on this bill?
What we did was they had her in the first bill, putting the sprinkler system in it. The substitute bill takes that expense off and makes it more reasonable for you to have your business. So that's
Mr. Cronin.
basically what it is.
I had discussions with Mike Harwood about this, and sprinkler systems are high dollar and high maintenance, but there's other things like CO2, carbon monoxide detectors, and fire escape ladders, and emergency lighting that isn't very expensive. So I think we need to look at that, because there have been nationwide some incidents where people have died in bed and breakfasts. So I think the community development's gonna have the discretion to say, you know what, maybe you need a carbon monoxide detector, maybe you need this, whatever. So if we need to address that by ordinance down the road, we can. If they want to do their discretion to do it, but those are low-cost things, and, you know, the firefighters will tell you that the fumes kill you before the flames. So, you know, that's why every RV on the planet's got a carbon monoxide detector. Those things are cheap and might be something we need to look at down the road.
Very good. Mike, do you want to come up and explain anything about the substitute bill, or does anybody have any questions for Mike about the substitute bill? So seeing none, now we'll ask all in favor of adopting the substitute bill, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The substitute bill is adopted. So with that, we would call the roll and vote.
Substitute Bill Number 5016, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 21-18 for a bed and breakfast residence to Chickadee Acres LLC property owners and Lisa Mallon applicant. Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
And with that, Bill number 5016 is passed, which brings us... Hey! It's my little chickadee. I've always wanted to be able to say that in public. It's never been appropriate until now. Who knew? So with that, we will move on to public comments. For those of you who have not been here for public comments before, the way this works is we have a clock over here who has 3 minutes on it. It will count down. Once your 3 minutes are up, I will thank you for coming. You'll hear the beeper go off, and we'll ask you to have a seat, and we will move on to the next speaker. I know most of you are here to speak about the same thing, but council rules do say that we normally take 6 speakers on an issue, 3 for, 3 against, so we may entertain a motion later to allow more speakers. It's at the will of the council to do that, so we'll get to that when we get there. In the meantime, we will start with our first speaker of the night.
Judy Bateman.
Alderwoman Bateman called earlier, and we were supposed to set this up as a public presentation, but that's the council's chair's fault for not making sure that that got done. So I appreciate you rolling with me and
problem.
making this work during public comment. So with that, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, and I will try to do this in a very short time because I want these two lovely ladies to talk. I am Judy Bateman from the city of St. Peters. I'm an alderman, and I'm also here because of our St. Charles County Municipal League that I serve on and have for many years. One of my pet projects was to get a youth council for our county. So we're starting that, and it said as long as it was done in my lifetime, and clock's ticking, so it's here. So we have a chairman and a vice chairman with us tonight. I'd like them to tell you a little bit about what their vision is and go from there. So you go first. This is our chairman, Shelby Terrell.
Good evening, council members. It's an honor to speak in front of you. I would like to speak on our current mission of the Youth County Advisory Board. The mission is to have fun events, give back to the community and to charities, protect the youth's mental health, and learn about our local governments. We will also raise funds for veterans, first responders, and for the youth to have events to benefit the community, to synergize St. Charles County youth together.
Perfect. And this is Ella Matea.
Well, thank you for letting us speak up here. But first of all, to sum it all up, well, we want to help everyone. We'll do anything to help anyone. So if you have anything in mind and you want to tell us, come tell us. We'll try to plan something else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Since we still have a few
You have plenty of
minutes,
time.
I just want to mention that these two have been with us from the beginning, and it's been a long road trying to get it together with COVID. We do have about 8 members now. We've been meeting twice a month. They're a very energetic group, so keep them in mind because you're going to see a lot more of them. They're our future. So anyway, again, thank you so much. Merry Christmas to all of you, and I appreciate everything you do. I like being on this side than that side.
Thank you. And Judy, normally, before you go, because this is my fault, this should have been a public presentation. So normally, we don't do back and forth during public comment. But ladies, you're at which schools? And
Yeah, tell them your schools. Sorry.
I just wanted to get some pub for your schools in there.
Oh, I attend Orchard Farm High School, and I go through the dual enrollment program at St. Charles Community College.
And you are a senior, a junior?
I am a junior.
You're a junior, okay.
And the college.
I'm a freshman in Fort Zuma South High.
Freshman, wow, okay.
You have
Ladies,
to
thanks
hurry,
very
Ella,
much
the
for coming
lemonade
tonight.
stand. This is Ella with the lemonade stand. How much money have you raised?
We passed over $100,000.
$100,000.
$100,000. Thank you very much.
I remind you that Ella's father was a member of our police department for a number of years until he retired a few years ago, Lieutenant Chris Matea.
Wow.
So it explains why she does so well. Her father was a cop, so there you go. All right, so thank you very much for working with me on that, Judy. I appreciate it, and I apologize for the girls again for not getting that done as a public presentation. With that, we will revert back to our normal format of public comment, and our next speaker is?
Arnie Dienoff.
Good evening. Thank you, members of council. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate and running for County Executive. You initiated a security checkpoint at the doors of our building, the People's Building. The rules need revisiting. Patting us down while Steve Ellman, his cabinet members and department directors, some council members get a free pass. Judge Schneider, I give you the data boy because you went through the security checkpoint like the rest of us.
And I got beeped too, didn't I?
Yes, you
I
did.
had my keys in my hand.
I watched the Director of Finance, Bob Schnarr, and the Community Development Director walk through with free passes, not showing any county identification. And they did not have to go through the same scrutiny and the same security that we did. These rules need revisiting. It's either all or none, and I see the sheriff in the back room. One, it's discrimination and unsafe practices. Number two, a gun can be brought in by an employee, department director, or Ellman's highly paid hench people. Number three, I feel unsafe with this practice because I can't protect myself, which could yield a lawsuit in either federal or circuit court. Now, something really needs to be addressed here, and it's kind of unashamed that we don't have the rules down and there's free passes that were given out. Selection of a county public health director. Where's the community involvement rather than our $200,000 Joanne Lycum Director of Administration? It's high time that you included the public in selecting our director. There was a tornado press conference held on Saturday, December 11th in Defiance, and I ask you, everybody, to look at Fox 2 YouTube. Mr. Ellman, our current county executive, laughed during the 15-minute press conference and smiled. While a woman lost her life, her family had a tragedy. People were critically injured. Residents lost their homes and lost their valuables and had destruction. How sick and demented that you sat there and laughed and smiled the entire 15 minutes. You owe these victims and us an apology. Constantly laughing at a tragedy is unwarranted in my county and our county. The 2022 budget, I ask that you reduce the council salary from $21,000 down to $100 a meeting, that you do away with your lobbyist worth $400,000. Bill 5030, Mr. Elam, you think you are better than us? You want a higher paid office of power? Not under my watch, and I will make sure that you have that your legislation stinks in this case, and I will make sure that you have competition at the next county council election. Ellman is a figurehead and has no clue, but yet he wants to
Thank you, Mr.
discriminate
Dienoff.
against
Your time has
others.
expired. With that, we'll
Thank you.
move on to our next public speaker.
On Bill 5030, Lindy Williford.
Good evening. I honestly don't know if I should laugh or yell at you tonight about Bill 5030. I laugh because this is truly a pathetic, transparent, and self-serving attempt to retain power and stop the competition that we all know is coming for you, Mr. Ellman. You put Bill 5030 on the agenda during the same week as Christmas, when you know we are all busy and likely too distracted to notice. Do you think as a mom I want to babysit corrupt politicians tonight? No, I want to be out Christmas shopping with my kids, who also don't want to be here tonight. But I will teach them to know what corrupt government looks like and how to speak out against it. So thank you for giving them a civics lesson tonight. Speaking of our children, Mr. Ellman, you have sat there watching the children in this county suffer for nearly 2 years at the hand of your health department. You said last time your health department is standing down. So why did I hear directly from the Wentzville School District today that they are still providing your health department with contact tracing information? Has your health department not caused enough harm? The mental health of our children has rapidly declined, and you have done nothing to stop it. A 7th grader at my daughter's school committed suicide this past week. Did you know that? 7th grade. And here you are trying to preserve your position of power in which you can cause more harm. This community will not stand for you any longer, and it will be our mission to make sure you are not reelected, no matter what cheap games you try to play to do it. Mr. Ellman, you were on the Mark Cox show this morning trying to justify this bill. You took the biblical teaching of serving two masters in Matthew 6:24 completely out of context. You said it wouldn't be appropriate for a county executive to serve both the county as well as serve another employer or operate a business. That is not what the scripture says. The scripture says no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. That is what the scripture says. It does not say thou shalt not have two jobs. To relieve someone of the obligation to provide for their family and themselves and put it squarely on the back of the taxpayers only serves one master, and that's you, Mr. Ellman. I guess if there can only be one master, you must think it is better to serve yourself than the people, right? Thank you again for exposing the fact that you are not a true conservative and completely out of touch with your community. I'd like to give you a gift as you finish out your final term as county executive. A tiny rhino. Please put it on your desk as a reminder. Mr. Elam, I have one for you too. Merry Christmas.
Marianne Boatwright.
Because power corrupts, society's demand for moral authority and character increase as the importance of the position increases. John Adams said that. By the way, he was never prevented from being VP or president because he was a lawyer. Founding fathers had to have jobs if they were going to feed their families, since politics didn't pay well back then. They took political positions, served constituents, returned home to live under the laws they passed. That was the proper order of things. We have many career politicians who never ran a business, made payroll, paid for their own health insurance, or funded their own retirement. Many have great insurance plans and 2 or 3 pensions paid for by taxpayers struggling to pay their own while supporting families. The current White House resident never had a real job. That's been painfully clear by his national and foreign policy and business decisions. It's the responsibility of the person in power to have a moral compass. It's the responsibility of citizens to remind elected officials that we see you and know what you're doing. Amen. We are awake. Fear is a powerful thing and causes people to make poor decisions. That was abundantly clear watching COVID play out, and power mongers seize opportunity to put their boot on our throats. Fear of losing power corrupts those who wield it. When politicians fear losing power and money, they sometimes resort to unseemly behavior. This can lend itself to participating in voter fraud, taking Zuckerbucks, and doing inappropriate things behind the scenes they normally wouldn't do. Competition forces us to be better. We learn that as children from teachers and coaches by excelling in school, sports, and business because of competition. If competition wasn't there, we might have done the bare minimum. We all have character flaws. It's called being human, but it is what we do when we think no one is looking that determines who we really are. Politicians need to stop insulting voters by trying to eliminate competition and changing the rules in the middle of the game. You must think we're too lazy or uninformed to figure this out, do our own research, and select the best candidate to represent us. This caper looks like something taken out of the Socialist Democrat playbook. Why is this happening in St. Charles County, the conservative heart of Missouri? Not one council member with a conscience and wisdom should be voting for this. I made a FOIA request in hopes of shining a light on this situation so we can get to the bottom of this shamefully embarrassing episode.
Bob Onder.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, for the record, Bob Onder, representing Senate District 2. The founders of our republic cherished the idea of the citizen public servant. Indeed, almost every one of the 55 delegates to the Constitutional Convention had another business or profession. outside of politics. Jefferson Adams Hamilton lawyers, George Mason planter, Washington farmer, Franklin publisher, just to name the few. Now, in my comments tonight, I'm going to use a phrase that many find offensive, or some find offensive, and that is the phrase career politician. I want you all to know that I'm not talking about any of you members of the council. For instance, you, Mr. Brazel, have businesses in construction and canoe rental. You, Mr. White, bed and breakfast and winery. You, Mr. Cronin, a farm store. And you, Mr. Chairman, a voiceover business. You have other interests outside of this chamber. You represent the ideal of the citizen legislator that our founders so valued. So I cannot express to you my disappointment, my shock, and ultimately my anger when I learned that Mr. Ailman submitted Bill number 530. It omits 7 words from the county charter to completely ban the county executive from engaging in, quote, any trade, business, occupation, or enterprise. Who would this benefit? Mr. Ailman himself. Mr. Ailman is a career politician. He has made his living from the taxpayer coffers for 35 years, and he's a beneficiary of multiple government pensions. Under Ailman's Bill 530, he could be county executive because he is a career politician, because he has no other trade, occupation, business, or enterprise. Members of the council, each of you, and probably the others of you as well, have businesses and enterprises that would disqualify you. And as Mr. Ailman knows and likely intends, my medical practice, he hopes, would disqualify me. For that matter, Donald Trump would be disqualified because he owns multiple businesses and enterprises. And I confirm today the governor of the state of Missouri would be disqualified because he continues to own and actively operate a cattle farm. So, we all know county executive is a full-time job, of course it is. But Mr. Ailman's bill would put up a sign, only career politicians need apply. So I don't call people corrupt lightly, and in my 7 years in the Missouri Senate, I've seen a lot of sleazy stuff. But I don't think I've ever seen anything as corrupt, manipulative, or deceitful as this bill. I say corrupt because it directly benefits the person who filed it. I say deceitful because it disguises itself as a good government measure to deceive the voters into giving Mr. Ailman political advantage. It's corrupt, it's deceitful, and it's disrespectful of the voters of St. Charles County, and I urge you to reject it, or you, Mr. Ailman, to withdraw.
There are 5 more speaker cards against.
All right, so do I have a motion?
I have a motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next speaker.
Denny Steinmeier.
Good evening. Glad I have the opportunity to speak. For 37 years, I traveled the world. I've seen Venezuela, I've seen Bogota, I've seen Brazil. And over the periods of traveling to those countries, I watched citizens diminish their right to do anything. And I can't, what they've encompassed here and the parameters that were discussed are pretty much what I wanted to say. But what I really want to convey to you is that over those years, I've watched those countries go to nowhere. And I've always come back to this country and kissed the ground I live on every time I come through customs. And I don't want to see this country do the same thing, and it looks like we're heading that way if you eliminate people from being able to serve on their own board in their own community. That's all I have. Thank you.
Katie Rash.
Well, my speech will be a little bit less fiery tonight, but I do want to say that I have rearranged my evening tonight to be here because I think that this is very important. I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old at home. I had them come home from school today and open their Christmas presents. We planned to do that as a family tonight, but it was important for me to be here to speak. okay? I don't understand why this is happening tonight in December. I don't understand that. But what I'd like to say is that at face value, this appears that this could be serving the incumbent more than the interests of the general public. And I think that we've been hearing a lot of people saying that tonight. We'd like an explanation. We'd like to know why this was ever even brought to the table. How does this serve the public interest instead of just the incumbent? We want an answer. I'm sorry, I'm losing my place.
It's okay.
Okay. One point that I'd like to make is that, if you're saying this is to avoid having kickbacks, well, do you have a kickback policy in place? That should be in place, right? There are many other circumstances in a person's life that could interfere with their ability to serve. We saw Ron DeSantis' wife come down with breast cancer, right? He has a family obligation that he has to attend to. And that's very sad that that's happening. There could be a parent, there could be a county executive who's a caretaker for a parent with dementia. That's a great responsibility in their life. Why are we singling out simply having a job? Okay? People have many different personal responsibilities in their lives. Why are we saying you can't have a job, but you might have all these other responsibilities in your life? Why? If I'm a mom of young children, am I unfit to serve as county executive because I have responsibilities in my life? We demand answers. We really do. And I know that you won't answer me directly, but I hope that in the discussion tonight that we'll be able to see from every single council member. I hope that we'll be able to see every single one of you weigh into this issue tonight. Because guess what? I will be canvassing neighborhoods between now and April. I'm involved in a school board election. And guess what? I will be speaking about, not just about the school board election, I will be speaking about our council people, and I will be speaking about our county executive. Thank you.
Greg Modlish.
Members of the council, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I would pretty much echo everything that these other folks have said, but to kind of tone it down just a little bit, I think if you're going to discuss this evening, what we'd like to hear is some background and context. Why is this even necessary? It really just strikes a few words, and to me that creates ambiguity that could really engender corruption. It could be taken to the nth degree. It's unnecessary. In 3.204.4, you already have a very strong deterrent for people not doing their jobs. The language is in place as it is. It works. What's the problem? Do we have a problem with this in St. Charles County? You mentioned that there's a growing problem with this in the region, or there's multiple examples. So we'd like you to provide those multiple examples with some detail. What happened? What caused this to come up? It makes no sense. This would have a massive chilling effect on potential qualified candidates, as Senator Onder already expressed. And in addition, the charter question on the ballot is not misleading. It's just, it lies by omission. It doesn't show the existing language. It doesn't say what was stricken. It doesn't say anything about it. And to the uneducated voter who just reads that, and they go, oh, well, yeah, that seems like a good idea. Nobody should be working another job while they're the county executive. It doesn't flesh out the full story. It doesn't talk about freedom to make money on your own time when you're not working as the county executive. It's just another freedom squashing tyrannical attempt by career politicians to make sure that they stay in power. Thank you.
Brenda Webb.
Good evening. I just want to say that I heard Mr. Ellman speak this morning on 97.1, And he said, this job used to be done during regular business hours, but the people of St. Charles County over the years have voted to change the charter several times. And now the executive is responsible for the jail, which is 24/7. More recently, they put the county exec in charge of the police department 24/7. And now there's a park system which is open 24/7. Well, interestingly enough, all of the above were proposed, supported, and promoted by this very county executive. So to ascribe responsibility for those changes on the people who depend on their elected officials to tell them the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, I find it seems a bit hypocritical. Because I was deeply involved in working in the 3 short weeks that we had to work against the county police department. We talked about, everybody that I talked to about how it did away with the constitutional duties of our elected sheriff and put them all in the hands of one person, because the police department and the county chief were going to be hired and fired and overseen by one person, the county executive. Every person that I explained that to said, oh, well, we don't want that, and they were going to vote no. We came within less than 1% in 3 weeks of defeating that measure. And this is the same kind of thing. And putting it in on December and putting it on the April ballot, when we all know there is a very low turnout, is just incomprehensible to me. I don't know why I get so nervous up here. So I find it very curious and potentially suspect that all of a sudden we've got to do this with all of that passed. And I really suggest to you guys, or I urge you to not pass this in 2 weeks. A county charter amendment should never be passed in 2 weeks, in 2 meetings. That's not enough to get the information out to the voters. They deserve the truth and the whole truth, not just, like this gentleman said, not just some little paragraph of voting, description that we all know doesn't carry the whole explanation. So it's just unfair. It's like not doing the agenda on Friday night and expecting you to vote on Monday. It's the same thing, only this is even bigger. So please don't pass this stupid thing. We will all be working our tails off if you do. And I, for one, am really tired of coming up here on Monday nights to try to get you guys to do and listen to the people. So please say no, vote no on this thing.
Tony Lavasco.
Good evening. I'm State Representative Tony Lavasco, representing House District 64. I'm told that if you want to prepare remarks, you need to go first, because otherwise most of what you'd plan to say is superfluous. I think that's been absolutely true tonight. We've heard a lot of comments on all sides of this issue. And I guess I'd like to say that the one thing that hasn't been discussed is the importance of being careful when we change our charter. The charter is the foundational document of local government. It's effectively our constitution in St. Charles County. And we don't make changes to foundational documents lightly. At least we shouldn't. At the legislature in Jefferson City, we have had countless battles over trying to fix unintended consequences that came after initiative petitions made modifications to our state constitution for things like putting bingo in there, right? And other things that don't belong in our Constitution, things that are statutory, things that the analogy here would be an ordinance. If we have an issue with our county executive not being able to act like an adult and manage their time wisely, well, that's something that this body can address. There are mechanisms for that. And in fact, the current county charter specifically prohibits outside employment or acting in financial gain during the business hours of St. Charles County. That seems like a reasonable restriction. And I've not seen anything from our current county executive that suggests that's been a problem. I've got a copy of his book on my bookshelf. I don't feel like he was shirking his duties to the county going on tour when he wrote that book. This is a solution in search of a problem. And to modify our county's foundational document, because we think that maybe someday there might be someone else in that chair that might be a problem, is not the way to address that. This language is far too broad. It outlaws all kinds of conduct that has nothing whatsoever to do with county government. I would read this to mean you couldn't list some stuff on eBay for some money on the side. That's not what this is about. That's not what this body's about. And I don't know Mr. Ellman well enough to know if he has ill motives about this or not. I'm not going to go there. But I will say it looks really bad. And from the outside, we don't want to go to the voters to ask them to change our most important document in this county just for them to say, well, this looks like inside baseball. That's not what we should go to the voters for. We should go to the voters when we absolutely have to solve a problem that needs to be addressed, not just because we have a hunch this might be a problem. So I would urge this body to reject Bill 5030 and contemplate perhaps when we should be changing our charter. Thank you.
Mackenzie Ballino.
Hi, I have to say this is my first council meeting and I am not disappointed. And I haven't had more faith in this country in a really long time, and I want to thank everybody else who's spoken tonight. It's really great to see people this passionate about something, regardless of what your opinion is about what's being done. I'm here to address 5030 like a lot of people. And as Representative Lovasco said, it's pretty much all been covered, but I just want to echo that I pretty much have the same opinions as everyone else. And I made a post on Nextdoor just to kind of gauge public opinion on this. I'm a lead on Nextdoor in my neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods. Not sure why they'd assign that to me, but they did, so I try to use it well. And most people either are very confused about this and they don't understand why it's being done, or they think it's something that it doesn't seem to be, or they're very opposed to this. And that was people from multiple districts, not just ones very close to here. So I would urge all of you to keep your constituents in mind. And I know a lot of you, I looked up your bios, you're either former business owners or current business owners, or you're very involved in the community. And that's how it should work. You should represent your constituents. And I think that's very important. And that's something that I love about Missouri. I've had the offer to move out of this state multiple times for working in politics, various jobs that my husband has, and we love this state and we love this county. And it's been great to see people standing up for it, and I think it's very important that you all take that into consideration and don't rush this through and have people get the chance to actually consider this and represent your constituents well. Thank you.
That's the final speaker on Bill 5030. And on Bill 5022, Amy Benninghoffen.
Hello, it's been a minute. I decided to come and speak about this because this is actually the area that where I work, and this would affect me personally, and where I work every day. The reason I'm opposed to you guys passing for us partnering with DESE is because I don't like the whole health part of it. I think we already require them to produce, their shot records when they come to our centers. And then if they don't, they get to choose whether or not to have a vaccination. I'm thinking, I can't think of the word because I got nervous. Basically a card that exempts them, an exemption card, excuse me. So they can either choose to bring their shot records or an exemption card. And I don't think it's our job or our teachers' jobs to be influencing the children on getting vaccinated. I am completely and 100% against that, and I feel uncomfortable, and I don't want to do it. And I don't think that should be required of me in my job. I'm not going to tell parents what to do. I'm not going to tell children what to do. That is not my responsibility, and therefore I don't want you guys to pass this. It's not our job. We ask them for their shot records, and then if they don't bring those, they can bring an exemption card, and that is the law. No further than that should we be going. Reading books to these children about getting vaccinated? Are you kidding me? In America? No, I'm not going to do it. And I've been working at this place for 5.5 years, and I love these families and I love these children, but I'm not doing that. So I highly recommend for you not to pass this. You need to read the fine print, because it's there. They're just like this 50-30 bill. You're trying to sneak in crap that doesn't belong. We're tired of it. Just done. And I would highly recommend you listen to the people, because not one person has got up here and said that they are for 50-30. These are the people speaking.
So that wraps up public comment for tonight. We move on to oral report from the county executive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Were you going to read that letter into the record?
When it comes up.
When it comes up?
When the bill comes up.
Oh, when the bill comes up.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the council, let me begin by congratulating all those who responded after the tornado in Defiance and have been working to clean up ever since. Been pointing out to people that, we had one death, and that's a real tragedy, and we had 5 homes that were completely destroyed, which is terrible for those families. But compared to Kentucky, we were very fortunate if you can say that. And I've been telling people that area out there has a connection with Kentucky that I think most of you are aware of, and that is people from Kentucky settled that area before we were even part of the United States, including Daniel Boone and his family. And we were very fortunate that the tornado missed the Daniel Boone home by a couple miles, and that's where. And also missed the Hayes house by about 2,000 yards. So the interesting thing about that, though, is, and I was out there on Friday night, and I saw the pioneer spirit still very much in evidence in that part of our county. Joanne and I were very concerned because people were, as soon as the tornado was over, people were out there wanting to start the cleanup. And we needed to get Ameren out there to go ahead and make sure that those lines that were down were not hot. So they got out there, and our ambulance folks were there to get those people to the hospital that needed to go. Chris Hunt and the EMA people did a tremendous job of responding. The fire districts were all very much involved. Our building department started the next morning and did 240 inspections to make sure that the houses were safe for people to go back in. But again, from the very beginning, while all the professionals were out there, the people out there immediately pitched in. They didn't wait for government to show up. They pitched in, and Councilman Brazel was leading them. And I'm very proud of the work that he did and the leadership he showed during that very difficult time for his constituents. So the other thing, of course, I need to discuss the bill that everyone has been talking about here, and I've asked you to consider this bill. And if you decide that this is a good idea, then you would send it to the voters, and it would be up to the voters to amend the charter if they thought it needed amending. Now, St. Louis County has been a charter county for 65 years. And
St. Louis County.
Please don't do that. Go ahead.
St. St. Louis County's been a charter county for about 65 years, and we've been a charter county for 25, a little more than 25. During that time in both counties, all the county executives have treated their job as such until as a full-time job until the present county executive in St. Louis County, and I think whoever is elected to take my position will quickly realize it's a full-time job as well. What I'm asking you to consider is the same issue that St. Louis County Council sent to its voters in a bill that passed 2 weeks ago. And if we pass the budget tonight, the next county executive will be making over $181,000 a year. With benefits, he or she will cost the county taxpayers nearly $1 million over the 4-year term. And I think it's reasonable to ask the taxpayers whether they want him or her to dedicate themselves entirely to the job of county counselor. Now, just to correct some perceptions, and Rory and Bob Hoink and I worked several hours trying to get the language just right. This does not keep someone from owning a business. They can still own their business, they can still own their farm, they just can't be an employee in their business. And that is the intent. And in fact, if you look at the charter, the very next section in the charter deals with ownership. And obviously, we've never, and we're not changing that, so it's obvious that you can still own property and realize profit from your investment. You just can't be an employee. And that, if that's not clear in the existing bill, we need to make sure it is clear, and I'll ask the attorneys to work on that in the next week or so. The job has changed. Ms. Webb, mentioned that we have had changes from when this charter was originally written. The county executive at that time, pretty much the things he had to supervise were things that did close at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And as she said, added to that was the running the jail. Later adding to that was the police department, for which I will take responsibility. It had nothing to do with the first thing. And the third, of course, is when the voters approved our park system. And so, yeah, what you have today is a job, and it's much broader than it used to be. I will tell you that when things go wrong, they don't always go wrong between 8:30 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon. In fact, most of the time, tornadoes are the best example. They go wrong after hours. And that's why I think it's important that the county executive, whoever that is in the future, be required to go ahead and make it a full-time job, as all of us have up until this point. And quite frankly, up until the last few days, I assumed that whoever took my place would do the same thing. So the job has changed. Voters approved taxes for the park system, as I said. But more important than the time aspect is just the conflict of interest situation. The point's already been made. We have a long history in our country of part-time legislators. Indeed, the members of the Continental Congress were part-time legislators. They drafted a constitution that made George Washington president. At that point, he was the chief executive. I don't think he had any other job. I think that's a good system, having citizen legislators, and we have that on the state level, and 2 of them are here tonight, and we have it on the county level. All of you are a good example. I think it's a good system because you all have to be out in the trenches on a day-to-day basis. You know the problems that people are facing, and the same is true of our legislators. But I don't think, and I and I served as a legislator, and I was had another job, and I did have a business, and I did meet a payroll while I was serving in the Senate. But the fact of the matter is, I can't imagine the governor of the state having outside employment. I remember back in 2000, the lieutenant governor actually did, and everybody went crazy. Like, you can't do that. Well, there was no prohibition, but he ended up being defeated in the next election. Because of those, you got those advantages, but you also have a problem when you have citizen legislators, because if they have another job, they have potential conflicts. That's why all of you, and myself, and others, file every year with the Ethics Commission to tell everybody what sources of revenue our families are relying upon. And oftentimes, in Jeff City and up here, people have to recuse themselves if they have a conflict. Mr. Brazel, I think in the last meeting, recused himself because y'all were voting on a roof job, and that's his business, and he rightly recused himself. But the governor shouldn't have to recuse himself, and I don't think the county executive should have to recuse himself either, and that's just not good government. Now, our charter already prohibits all of us from accepting, quote, anything of value from anyone having dealings with the county. And I think that's obviously, you know why that's in there, and I think it's good that it is. But my question, is a job a thing of value? And I'm sure there are people who might want to offer a county executive a job at some point. I don't think it's good for him to be able to take it, or her. Now, the courts have said that I have no role to play in sending something like this to the people. I did, under your rules, send this forward, and under your rules, as you know, the chairman, Mike Elam, right now, always sponsors the bills that the county executive wants you to consider. And I haven't asked Mike to support this and haven't asked any of you to support it yet. What I'd like to see is, and I hope that you will in the end, but I'd like to see a worthy debate. I think we've heard several ideas on this. After which, if I can in good conscience, I will ask you to support this. I was going to go ahead and introduce Amanda at this point, but you've already taken care of that, Mr. Chairman. So I'll be glad to answer any question when you get to the discussion of the bill.
All right, thank you. Moving on, we'll go to the consent agenda. Any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Move to accept.
Motion to accept. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. That brings us up to our bills for final, we're at the emergency bill, bill number 5035.
Emergency Bill Number 5035, requested by Steve Ellman, sponsored by Mike Elam, an emergency ordinance waiving certain fees for recycling and discounting certain fees for building permits and floodplain development permits to assist county residents in recovering from the December 10th, 2021 storm and EF3 tornado.
Any questions or comments, Mr. Brazel?
Yeah, I got some comments. I would like to thank Steve and Joanne and the county executive's office on this tornado situation. I did see Steve down there Saturday and Sunday, and I did tell Steve, I go, it's a good thing to be on the same side of an issue for a chance, or for one time, and, I laughed about it, but it was good. You guys did a good job. Captain Hunt was there every day. He was there at 1:30 at night with, we were on the night the barn collapsed on the horses. It was a tough night. But we were out there all week helping people. Greg helped me. It was really tough. But anyway, the people came together on this issue like you wouldn't believe. We had organized heavy equipment to come out on Sunday, and it was really good. I'm getting emotional. It was tough. But I want to thank everybody for helping. It was good.
Very cool. And for those who know, this is really just trying to help out folks by getting rid of fees and making it easier for them to get storm cleanup done and not adding insult to injury that they've already been through. So with that, please call the roll.
Emergency Bill Number 5035, an emergency ordinance waiving certain fees for recycling and discounting certain fees for building permits and floodplain development permits to assist county residents in recovering from the December 10th, 2021 storm and EF3 tornado. Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Emergency Bill 5035 passes. That brings us to bills for final passage. 5017.
Bill number 5017, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to RR Single Family Residential District per application RZ 21-17.
Any questions or comments about this bill? Seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to RR Single Family Residential District per application RZ 21-17. Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Bill 5017 passes. That brings us up to bill number 5018.
Bill number 5018, an ordinance adopting and appropriating the fiscal year 2022 budget for St. Charles County, Missouri.
Yes, I'd like to propose a substitute bill, number 5018.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion about the substitute? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So substitute bill 5018 is adopted. Any discussion? Sir?
I want to just ask Joanne, I do appreciate you sending this note on to correction officers, and I do realize at the last budget meeting, you did mention that the correction officers were down, but it wasn't mentioned that there are down 40 correction officers, and not that you're required to say that, I just, it caught me off guard when we got this email, and so that's a big problem when you're almost 50% down on correction officers. That's a huge problem.
It's about a third, and we did mention the 40 when we did the presentation on the 8th. That's why I sent that note that you could look at the tape and see it's between minute 16 and minute 17. I interrupted Bob and specifically talked about that with corrections, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. I didn't realize 40, that just is a lot. But my question is the pay scale, as you guys showed, is low, but with your notes here, are these numbers based on, it says no overtime, but there's two things. I want to know, are they, they're getting they're having mandatory overtime, which would be very draining on an individual and a family. So what are we going to do this is very important to try to get these people some help. And I talked to Dan about it. Is he in here? Dan King?
Not tonight.
He is not. But may I point out to you, Councilman, that in the amendment to the PAP tonight, thanks to some research that was done by one of Rory's county councilors, Amanda Jennings, we realized that we can use ARPA funds for additional overtime dollars. So we have proposed a $10 an hour premium with ARPA funds for the length of ARPA under its rules for the overtime they work. Because you're right, it is the overtime that they are really suffering under. And so that would be a huge help.
No, I heard that too, and that's great. Is there something we can do to motivate hirees? I mean, or I guess we're not taking federal prisoners anymore, is that correct?
We are not.
Right.
Okay, so that helps, but I was just concerned when I saw this, and I think everyone else would be too, that if we're working on it, that's fine. I just want to make sure that these guys are making enough money. They could even make more than what the average is. That's good with me because that's a miserable place when we went in there. It's very depressing, and I'd never want to work there.
If the council does amend the overtime provision for them under ARPA tonight, we will make that part of the recruitment.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cronin?
I think it's important to look at the forest instead of just the trees. Yeah, we got a problem with correction officers, but we got a bigger problem that we got a hell of a backlog in the courts because the Supreme Court told our judges that they couldn't try prisoners for darn near a year. So I'd like to see continued efforts to reduce the jail population by getting them through the system quicker. If they're innocent, get them out of there. If they're fixable, then give them parole or whatever, and if they belong in prison, get them to prison, get them off of our nickel. So I would like to, I'll continue to harp on that, because I hate spending more money on the jail when there's a better solution, and that solution is get them through the system quicker. Instead, shouldn't sit, if there's overwhelming amount of evidence against a criminal prosecution of a criminal in this county, it shouldn't take 2 years from the time they get arrested to the time they get sent off to jail. So.
Any other questions or comments about the substitute bill? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Substitute Bill Number 5018, an ordinance adopting and appropriating the fiscal year 2022 budget for St. Charles County, Missouri. Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes. Substitute Bill 5018 passes. Bill 5019 was passed earlier in this meeting. We'll move on to Bill number 5020.
Bill Number 5020, an ordinance approving the Transportation Improvement Plan for fiscal years 2022 through 2024 and corresponding intergovernmental agreements.
Any questions or comments about this bill? Seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance approving the Transportation Improvement Plan for fiscal years 2022 through 2024 and corresponding intergovernmental agreements. Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Bill number 5020 passes. Nice job, Amanda. Thank you very much. Bill number 5021 is next.
Bill Number 5021, an ordinance approving a first amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with the City of O'Fallon for construction of new roadway Caledonia Parkway.
Any questions or comments about this bill? Seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance approving a first amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with the City of O'Fallon for construction of new roadway Caledonia Parkway. Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Bill number 5021 passes on to Bill number 5022.
Bill Number 5022, an ordinance reauthorizing the county executive to execute an agreement with the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for child health, safety, nutrition, and other services and training as part of the Maternal and Child Health Services Block Grant, which agreement was last authorized by Ordinance 11-100.
Any questions or comments about this bill? Mr. Brazel?
Yes, I got some information on this, and I would not like, I hope we don't support it. If you don't agree with not supporting it, I would hope we could table it. And the reason is because the DESE, whether or not they're good or bad, I'm sure they do a lot of great things. The concern is they contract with a private company. I believe, is it the Child Care Health Consultation? It's a company, I didn't bring my notes with me, I left in my car, but it's concerning to me that they contract with a private company. So when they do vaccination, like cartoons, how it's good to get a shot, and they do all this other stuff, where a lot of parents aren't so good with that. And so I would think that if you don't agree by not accepting the grant, I would hope that we could at least table it till the next meeting so we could provide more information if you're interested in that, because I don't think that's a good idea. I don't want my kid, my 12-year-old, seeing little commercials and cartoons and encourage them to get a shot, and you're a bad person if you don't, and all this other stuff. So I am not in favor of this, because a private company doesn't answer to the voters, and that's a real problem. And so that's why I will not support this grant.
Mr. Cronin?
I took the time to read everything and also read the contract. And basically, our health department has been under a similar agreement with the county or the state since 2015. And basically, the governor, which is his prerogative, decided to, instead of having that program administered by Department of Health, he switched it to Department of Education. It's still pretty much the same program that's been going on since 2015. And basically, it's education and child screening. I support it, and I'll tell you why I support it. I've got one son that had a screening issue that one of these screens caught, and it changed his life and made him a productive citizen. So to strip the money from our health department and not agree to do this, where they don't get the money for childhood education for places that are given childhood education and or screening for kids that could maybe need to be screened, I think is wrong. I got no problems. This doesn't change the services that have been given, doesn't change the services in the future. All it is a name change from the Department of Health to Department of Education. And Joanne, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think that's my summary of it, okay?
It's just a change of, the governor changed the supervising agency from Department of Health and Senior Services to the Department of Elementary and Secondary
Everything else
Education.
remains the same that's been going on since 15, pretty well.
It's, yes, and quite a bit of it has to do with also offering CEUs, continuing education units, to daycare workers about how to do cleanliness practices, and various other things like that. Councilwoman Schneider had asked for some of those, and I passed those on. I can send them to the council as a whole if you need them, so.
I'll just make 2 points on the council, on what you just talked about, daycare, training daycare workers on how to teach young children. I would be very concerned what exactly they're training them on or what they're teaching them. And the other thing I would be concerned about is what Mr. Cronin said is we've been doing this since 2015. That's fine and dandy, but we weren't aware of COVID and all the craziness, and so that's the problem. I'm just saying things are a lot different now, that's all, Joe. Things are different. We weren't awake on all this stuff.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bill number 5022, an ordinance reauthorizing the county executive to execute an agreement with the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for child health, safety, nutrition, and other services and training as part of the Maternal and Child Health Services Block Grant, which agreement was last authorized by Ordinance 11-100. Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
No.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Bill number 5022 passes. Bring on to bill number 5023.
Bill number 5023, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an amended St. Charles County Regional Drug Task Force agreement for the county's multi-jurisdictional drug task force.
Any questions or comments about this bill? Seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing the execution of an amended St. Charles County Regional Drug Task Force agreement for the county's multi-jurisdictional drug task force. Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Bill number 5023 passes. On to bill number 5024.
Bill number 5024, an ordinance amending the 2021 budget adopted as ordinance 20-094 as amended by transferring unencumbered appropriations between line items in the general fund budget of the Department of the Collector of Revenue, Capital Projects Fund, the Election Authority Fund, and the Prosecuting Attorney Drug Enforcement Fund, and providing related supplemental appropriations to the budgets of the Regional Drug Task Force Fund and the General Fund.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer proposed substitute bill number 5025.
24.
5024, that's the next one.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this substitute bill? All those in favor of adopting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The substitute bill is adopted. Any questions about the substitute bill? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Substitute Bill number 5024, an ordinance amending the 2021 budget adopted as ordinance 20-094 as amended by transferring unencumbered appropriations between line items in the general fund budget of the Department of Collector of Revenue, Capital Projects Fund, the Election Authority Fund, and the Prosecuting Attorney Drug Enforcement Fund, and providing related supplemental appropriations to the budgets of the Regional Drug Task Force Fund and the General Fund. Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Substitute Bill 5024 passes. On to Bill number 5025.
Bill number 5025, an ordinance amending sections 115.030, 115.080, 115.130, 115.190, 115.220, 115.300, 115.390, 115.410, 115.430, 115.600, 115.620, 115.670, 115.705, 115.710, 115.721, 115.722, 115.740, and enacting a new section 115.075 and deleting and replacing all of section 115.720 of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, all concerning the Personnel Administration Plan, including but not limited to benefits.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose substitute bill number 5025.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing no, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Substitute Bill 5025 is adopted. Is there any discussion to be had on this bill? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Substitute Bill number 5025, an ordinance amending sections 115.030, 115.080, 115.130, 115.190, 115.220, 115.300, 115.390, 115.410, 115.430, 115.600, 115.620, 115.670, 115.705, 115.710, 115.721, 115.722, 115.740, and enacting a new section 115.075 and deleting and replacing all of section 115.720 of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, all concerning the Personnel Administration Plan, including but not limited to benefits. Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Substitute Bill 5025 passes. On to Bill number 5026.
Bill number 5026, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute agreements for advocacy and lobbying services.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Cronin.
I'd like to thank former Senator Dempsey for he took the time to give me a call, and we discussed the fact that I'd like to be more informed about what's going on in his lobbying work. I also sent him a copy of the last update that our former transportation lobbyist, Gary Elmstead, used to send those out pretty regular. So I sent Tom one of those former reports from Gary Elmstead, when he lobbied for the county, and Tom said he would adopt something like that so we could all be, share with that. I haven't received the report from our other lobbyists, but I would ask you to do what you said at the last meeting, because, for instance, when they made the pseudoephedrine law that we had in this county moot, we never knew anything about it, and I think our lobbyists should have told us that. So that being said, I think Mr. Dempsey's doing a great job, and after you explain everything what he's doing, I would ask that the other lobbyists keep report to us as well, Steve.
There's not much to report right now. But
Okay.
starting in January, we'll get a weekly, and I'll make sure copy goes to everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bill number 5026, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute agreements for advocacy and lobbying services. Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
No.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes. Bill number 5026 passes. On to 5027.
Bill number 5027, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute an agreement on behalf of the police department with St. Charles County Ambulance District for remote pilots in command for the county regional SWAT team.
Any questions or comments about this bill? Seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute an agreement on behalf of the police department with the St. Charles County Ambulance District for remote pilots in command for the county regional SWAT team. Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Bill number 5027 passes. Last bill for final passage, 5028.
Bill number 5028, an ordinance relating to the redistricting of political townships after each decennial census.
Any questions or comments about this bill? Mr. Brazel.
I would like to say, I won't support this. This was done the same sleazy way that they did the districts and the councils. They just made up the townships and eliminated certain people, like Brenda Webb's 2 streets over. They deliberately knocked her out of her district. So I just don't like this politics. I don't like how they did this. They had no meetings, they had no input. So I'm a no vote on this for sure.
Anyone else have anything to say? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bill number 5028, an ordinance relating to the redistricting of political townships after each decennial census. Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
No.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Bill number 5028 passes. That wraps up bills for final passage. On to bills for introduction, starting with 5029.
Bill number 5029, requested by Honorable Joel Brett, sponsored by Mike Elam, an ordinance amending Section 160.090 ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri regarding court costs.
Any questions or comments about this bill? Seeing none, we'll go to bill number 5030.
Bill number 5030, requested by Steve Elman, sponsored by Mike Elam, an ordinance placing on the ballot of the Tuesday, April 5, 2022 general municipal election proposed amendments to Article 3 of the St. Charles County Charter, and if enacted by the voters, amending the charter by prohibiting the county executive at any time while serving in public office from engaging in any trade, occupation, business, or enterprise, such amendment of the charter to be effective upon certification of the election results.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Brazel.
I have some questions. It's either Mr. Owen or Rory Sullivan. I am curious, some of the people out here asked, after the charter, 96 or 92? I thought it was 96, someone said 92, but anyway, 25 years plus, that all of a sudden this had come up. I'm curious why it has to come up now when, Mr. Ullman, you were in office for 16 years, you never thought it was an issue. Why is it an issue now? That's really my first question.
Because St. Louis County, I was going to wait to see if St. Louis County put it on the ballot, and when they did, I thought it was at least a good opportunity for you to decide whether you want to do the same thing.
Okay, so
Does it have to be on the ballot in April? No.
Okay, so that's an interesting point because a couple weeks ago or a month ago, me and Mr. Cronin inquired to Rory, and maybe not you, but to Rory, and said that we would like to the county council should have its own county attorney that represented independently from the executive's office. And Roy specifically said, why would we want to be anything like St. Louis County? And so you can't have it one way that benefits you, but you can't have it the other way that benefits other people. So that's a problem I have right there. And the other thing is this whole bill is just, it's unbelievable because I'm 58 years old. What if I decided I'm running for county council or county executive, whenever, whoever's next person doesn't want to run or whatever? I own a campground. I own an RV campground. My brother's a retired attorney. He runs it. By this bill, I could not do that. Or my rental property or canoe business that I have. I still work there. I drive the vans when I have to. I help people at the campground. So you can't say if you own a business, you can't be employed. That's laughable. I mean, you're going to run a business. You got your heart and soul in that. You put that thing up and you nurture it like a child. And so anybody who has a business would know that, and they have a right to run for a county executive office. So I think that is way off. You got Mr. Cronin owns a tractor shop. John White has a winery. I don't know, Mike might have a voiceover business. I don't know, but this is, and it's way overreach because if you're a cattle farmer, like Mr. Honor said, or Senator Honor, you can't do that. You're farming. It says other enterprises, or other occupation, or other trade. That's anything. So that means that's like you writing a book when you were working for the county as a county executive. I mean, it's so ridiculous that I can't even believe, golly, that we're even considering this.
Mr. Cook.
Mr. Chairman.
Joe, can you hang?
I look at it from a little different viewpoint. My entire life, I've had 3 or 4 occupations at a given time. In fact, the joke with my family is I'm a jack of all trades and master of none. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong mic. But, I mean, you know, I put 3 kids through Catholic school. I had to have 2, 3 jobs or whatever. And I look back at our presidents. I have a picture in my office of George Bush running a chainsaw brand that we sell on his ranch when he was president. So he had his ranch down in Texas, and his occupation was a rancher/president. I think I toured the LBJ ranch, and LBJ had that ranch the whole time he was president, okay? And I don't know the governor that well, but I know him good enough to know him that when he goes down to his ranch in southern Missouri, he's riding his tractor or riding his horse, okay? And that's an occupation, being a rancher. So purely by the way this is worded, I don't like it, okay? I don't think it's proper. I do think the executive needs to be there during normal business hours, and I think the people that wrote our charter initially on this were spot on. They had it that way. They eliminated conflict of interest. I have found a lot of mistakes in the charter, and I found a new one just recently, and I gave it to Rory and Joanne tonight. I want people to know that this wasn't anything that we cooked up. I didn't hear anything about this till Thursday, and I didn't actually have the time to read it till it came out on the agenda Friday, were you folks. So I knew nothing about it. I didn't hear anything from Mr. Ellman or Mr. Elam about it, and when I first read it, I said, you know, I don't like this. I mean, I just don't like it, okay, because I don't think it's right. And the other thing, to echo what my representative, Mr. Lovasco there said, there's better ways of doing this, okay? And there's a charter amendment commission that's spelled out, and basically it's a long process. The circuit judges pick a bipartisan panel, okay? And they serve, and they come up with amendments to our charter, which is our Constitution, that makes sense. And we have a really good flock of judges that are getting ready to retire, and I think that would be a great thing to put them on, because there's a lot of mistakes in the charter. And if we're really concerned about a future county executive misbehaving or doing something wrong, then maybe we ought to put a retraction or provision into the charter. Because right now, there's no way of, if we do have an executive down the road that exploits this and doesn't do a good job, we have no way of removing him from office under the charter that I can find. So if we're going to do it right, let's do it right. Let's take the time to do it right. Let's appoint a bipartisan commission with some judges. Let's look at this whole charter, because it hasn't really had a lot done to it in 25 years, and let's get it done right. And as far as allowing people that are executives to form other occupations, I mean, you're going to play hell finding somebody that wants that job that has only one occupation. I mean, Steve, you're an author, you're a historian, you have other occupations, and so have I, and so does everybody up here. So that's my 2 cents on it, okay?
Just to clarify the record, when I wrote my book, I did that on my own time, but I did use county computer to do it, and because of that, I donated the book to Lindenwood, so I got no compensation for it, and that's the county counselor at the time advised me that was the safest way to approach that situation. Again, Mr. Brazel, as I said before, if we need to change the language to make it clear that this does not affect ownership, then we can certainly do that. You can own your business, you can own your farm, you just can't be an employee of the business that you own. You can still make all the profit, you can still you can work there on your own time, but you can't be paid as an employee. We may want to go ahead and look at what St. Louis County did is a whole lot simpler, and I'll make sure everybody gets a copy of that tomorrow. Their language is a lot simpler and clearer maybe than ours.
So with that, I wanted to let you know that we got a letter from Tim Fitch, who is Councilman 3rd District of St. Louis County, Republican over there. So he sent a letter to us in support of this bill, and just asked that be added to the record when we add it to our minutes. So.
Mr. Chairman?
that, So it can be done. Yes, Mr. Cronin?
I want to be real clear about this, because what you're saying, Steve, is a little different than what's in the bill. I want to read it verbatim. It says, "Any time while serving in office, carry on any trade, occupation, business, or enterprise for personal pecuniary profit or gain." Okay? So, it's basically an occupation. If you have a farm, like I have a farm, and I don't really do that much work on that farm, I still get gain from the government. The government sends me checks for the various government programs for that farm, even if I have a tenant farmer that's doing the work, okay? So, I mean, the thing is written so broadly, it would keep a lot of people from being able to do anything. It would keep you from collecting royalties for a book that you might write, okay?
Well,
okay?
On that point, the language that is in this new bill is the same language that's already in the charter, but it only applies during normal business hours. So if that is a problem in the proposed change, it's also a problem in the existing charter. And it would be a silly situation, but you'd have to sell your. If that's the interpretation, you'd have to sell your business every morning when you come to work and then buy it back every afternoon, which is an absurd reading of it. So once again, if it's unclear, I'll ask the lawyers. I mean, again, we spent a lot of time on this, and I wanted to make sure nobody read it that way. And obviously, I didn't do a very good job on that.
Mike?
Yeah, hang on. Folks, do me a favor. We've already had public comment. God love you for being here. I appreciate you took the time out, and we're this close to Christmas, and I know this is a hassle for all of you all to come out and do this, and you didn't plan on it. But please keep your comments down, right? We gave you a chance to speak. We changed the rules to allow you to all speak because we wanted you to all be heard. You've been heard. Give us the opportunity to discuss it without the back and forth, okay? Thank you. We appreciate the decorum for the chamber. Mr. Brazel.
This bill is just complete overreach for government, no matter what it says, because you're going to sit there and say, well, wait a minute now, I'm a VA, I collect money, I help people, I get a little stipend, or this or that, or my little canoe business. Well, what about this? If I drive a van on, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's just way too much government. We don't need it. Actually, what's working, the way the charter was written, works, unless Steve was working at McDonald's or something on the weekends or whatever. I mean, who knows? I mean, but it works. So why are we changing it? It doesn't make any sense. And here's the other thing that we got to keep in mind. The last election we had last year on putting out for the people to vote on that some certain directors did not have to be a resident of the county. It didn't pass by the voters. Right. That cost $135,000, okay? This one will also cost, this one bill will cost the county voters $150,000 for a County Executive Protection Act. And so I don't think that the county voters should pay for that. The council should reject this and not waste $150,000 because there's no way it's going to pass.
Mr. Cronin.
I'd rather see us, if we're going to put a charter amendment out there, put a provision for recall on a county executive, okay? Because then if you have a situation where you have a future county executive that abuses the system and does a horrible job, we've got a course of action. There is a procedure for recalling a council member, because I know Jeff Morrison in my district there was a petition out for him years back, but correct me if I'm wrong, Rory, but I read the charter, I couldn't find one in there, maybe there's one hidden away somewhere, okay? Is there any provision for recalling a county executive?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So a couple of things that I want to be clear about. I didn't know this bill was coming until Thursday either. So I found out when your council chair, and Senator Onder and I had a very spirited conversation on Saturday morning when he was not happy with me for putting this on. And I said, I'm council chair. If the administration puts a bill forward, it goes under council chair. So it goes under me that way already. Mr. Brazel, I would tell you, I have some questions about this as well. I mean, it's no secret, I've thought about running for county executive, but I have a voiceover business. I'm on the radio from time to time. I MC 20 events around this county on a regular year. when it's not COVID. So I would have to give all that up without being paid for it. I'd have to either donate my time or something. I don't own a business from the standpoint of my voiceover business. I get paid per thing that I do, so I am an employee of my business. The example that I have understood so far about this bill, and I'm still not sure how I feel about it, to be honest with you, but the example that I've heard for Mr. Cronin, for example, for your shop, you can still own your shop. You can still own your business. You just can't be an employee of your business. So your son could run it, I guess, and then you would still be able to get all the benefits there. You just couldn't be an hourly or a wage employee of your business. All the things that, Joe, that you own, you could still be an owner of that business. You just can't work in the day-to-day of it. I'm a little unclear on some of that as well. I had a conversation with somebody earlier today about what does enterprise, business or enterprise really mean, and I don't understand all of it as of right now, so I want to get some clarification. Hang on for a second before we get there. I want to get some clarification of that, but what I find interesting is a bunch of people have called me over the last few days to bring up all of these things that are in this language. And all this amendment did was strike during the normal business hours of St. Charles County. That is the only proposed change that we are looking at, is taking out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 words. That's it. That's the only change. Everything else that people have had some very heated discussions with me about over the last 3 days have been about all the stuff that follows that. It's not about that. So those are the only areas of this that we're talking about taking out, to be clear. So a lot of these other issues that people have been bringing up are already here. So if you have problems with that, it's in your current charter. So for some of those things, perhaps we need to have some clarification, to Mr. Cronin's point, for things that are already in your current charter. A lot of times, we had this with building code that came up a few years ago. People showed up here and said, you want to put 8,000 pages of building code on us. It's like, you already had the 8,000 pages of building code that were there. The majority of that wasn't new. You were already in it, right? So sometimes when things like this come up, we learn things that are there that you didn't really know was there because none of us were here in '92 when the...
These little words mean you cannot own a business, period. You cannot engage in any trade, period. You cannot engage in any occupation, period. That's what it says.
That's already in here.
But
everything you just
Mike,
said
by
is
striking
already-
that during normal hours, that means period. You can't own one at all.
The 8 words that are getting deleted change the entire meaning. of
Changes
it.
the whole
Because
meaning.
then it
I
means you
agree.
can't do it at all. Currently, you can do it, you just don't do it when the county's open,
So
okay?
that's why I said, Joe, sometimes I feel like you don't hear me when I talk.
I heard you,
What I
Mike, and
said
it-
was, we need to ask for clarification on these things and find out if it says what people are telling me it says, and not guess, right? So in other words, clarity helps. And if we have some clarity on this, then we would understand it. Rory, you wanted to make a point.
I did. When Councilmember Cronin asked me about that recall provision, I was not fully aware of all the facts and circumstances, but when I did some quick research, it's actually section 8300 in the existing charter language that deals with recalls of any county elective officer. So, just wanted to clarify that.
8,300?
8.300.
Okay, thank you.
Just one thing for clarification, Mike, when you referred to 2 years ago going to the International Building Code over BOCA, it is a problem. And it was 7,000 pages. And I've been a builder for 35 years, and BOCA was not nearly as difficult as, that's why that lady had to put sprinkler systems in it. We didn't know that was in there, because guess what? We didn't read the 7,000 pages. So if you're in the trades and you're in the construction industry, you would know how difficult 2016, anything that says International Building Code, that means we're trying to conform with somebody down in Florida or someone in New York. It's silly. We should have stick with the BOCA code. You brought it up. So you're wrong on that one, okay?
All I was saying on that was the fact of, it was code that was already there, right?
It wasn't already there. The International Building Code is 7,000 pages. BOCA was maybe 1,000, okay? And so there's a big difference in all the different rules on sprinklers, on valves, on your
With all due
toilet. You
respect,
can't
I
even
didn't
flush
mean
your.
to
No, but I'm just saying.
re-argue building codes.
No, but you brought it up.
I
I'm
was
just
just
saying.
using that as an example to point out there are things in the charter that are already in the charter. Just because you're not aware of it doesn't mean it's not in there. So there are some things, to Mr. Cronin's point, I was agreeing with him, where we probably need to go back and look at some of these things and clear them up, because things like this point out that we have a need to be clear.
Tony Lavasco was right. You don't change charters, you don't change constitutions, you stick with it because it works. And we're trying to fix something that's not even broken. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then, Mr. Cronin, God love you, have a bunch of judges? Really? Judges, Democrat and Republican? Are you kidding me?
That's
I mean,
the way-
we're
that's the
elected.
way the charter's
We
written.
are elected to make decisions for the people. If they don't like our decisions, they won't re-elect us. I mean, that's how it works. That's why you don't even start getting into this stuff. You don't even start making these kind of changes, because you get those solutions. It may say that, but that's a horrible solution. We're the ones that are supposed to make these decisions, and this is a bad bill. This is a bad charter amendment, and the fact that we're even talking about it is a little odd, because it's so bad.
All right, any other questions, comments, weighs in? Anybody got anything to say? All right, we will move on to bill number 5031.
Bill number 5031, requested by Steve Ellman, sponsored by Mike Elam, an ordinance providing for the reauthorization of the transportation sales tax to be placed on the April 5th, 2022 ballot for a vote of the people.
Any questions or comments about this bill? Yes, sir.
This was mailed to my house, and I hope everybody out there got one of these, but this is an excellent piece. Whoever put this together gives a little pat on the back, because it explains all the good that that transportation sales tax has done. And since we're putting this on the ballot, I hope everybody takes the time to read it and realize that reauthorizing this tax will keep a lot of our road projects moving, keep our traffic down, and help promote the economic growth of this county.
I got a.
Yes, sir.
Is this a tax increase, or what exactly is this?
No, this is reauthorizing what we've had. So when Amanda was talking about this.
Okay, that's
in
fine.
her report, this is what she was talking about.
Okay, that's fine.
The
Thank you.
voters last time, I think, reapproved this at 77%.
Okay.
This is what has allowed us to have all the roads and bridges built in this county when so many other places around the state did not get anything. I'll never forget being at a chamber meeting, Greater St. Charles Chamber, when Jay Nixon came in to speak, and we were talking about the latest expansion project of 364, and he said, I'd appreciate it if you folks are down around the Branson area, don't bring that up, because the money that Branson asked for to expand that Highway 465, I think it was, he said that money came to St. Charles County and went to 364. So the Branson folks are not a big fan of your transportation sales tax, because we did a sharing to get that done, and that's what allowed us to get the roads when they didn't. Go ahead.
Since we've got a couple state guys here right now, Senator Onder and Tony, it says we spent $122 million of this money on MoDOT projects. We want $122 million back, brothers. You guys got this fuel tax increase. Write the check to the Transportation Department, okay?
Mr. Elam.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, I really think that this tax is what's allowed us to start a lot of projects that wouldn't have been started, you know, and then, of course, MoDOT had to, you know, weigh in, but, you know, the last, 13, 14 years, I don't know how many times it's come before us where they said, well, we need to get this thing going, and we use this money to kind of, fuel things. So it's been, tremendously successful for us. It's what separates us from an awful lot of counties in Missouri when it comes to road and traffic and those kinds of things.
And big thanks to all those folks who serve on County Road Board. They do an amazing job of sorting through an awful lot of projects, working with our cities to get all that stuff done. So, any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to 5032.
Bill number 5032, requested by Chief Frizz and Tim Lomar, sponsored by Joe Brazel and Dave Hammond, An ordinance amending Chapter 375 of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri by enacting Section 375.930, vehicle tampering as a punishable offense.
Any questions or comments about this bill?
I'll just real quick, me, Tim Lomar, and Chief Fritz went to a press conference with St. Louis County and all the police chiefs from the municipal or the metropolitan area, including St. Charles County or St. Charles area. And this is a way to, there's some of these car rings, and if you have somebody going down the road lifting handles, there's no law against that, or opening trunks or popping trunks. So we're just making certain laws in here just to keep all the offenders out of our county and have the law enforcement able to arrest them when they do it. So that's what this is.
Any other questions or comments?
Also, there's provision in there that deals with stealing catalytic converters and trying to resell them. So that should hopefully stop some of that in this county.
That's a good point. If you sell in catalytic converters too, then you'll get arrested now. We didn't have that before. Yeah.
Move on to bill number 5033.
Bill number 5033, requested by Chief Kurt Friz and Tim Lomar, sponsored by Joe Brazel and Dave Hammond, an ordinance amending Chapter 375 of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri by enacting Section 375.935, vehicle prowling as a punishable offense.
Any questions or comments? Just builds on the last one, and so does the next one. 5034.
Bill number 5034, requested by Chief Kurt Friz and Tim Lomar, sponsored by Joe Brazel and Dave Hammond, an ordinance amending Chapter 620 of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri by enacting Section 620.040, scrap metal dealers, pertaining to electronic database requirements, and by enacting Section 620.050, salvage, sale, or salvage pool, relating to records requirements.
Any other questions or comments about that? Seeing none, that wraps up bills for introduction. No action to be taken on the tabled bills that I'm aware of, so that'll bring us up to announcements and miscellaneous. Anybody have anything?
Merry Christmas to everyone, one and all. Okay?
Yeah.
Go home, forget about this meeting, and enjoy your family.
Yeah, I'll be real quick on the tornado stuff. There were a lot of people who helped. I wrote it down. I don't want to forget anybody, but Karen Brock Construction, Wall Shoots Construction, John Stevens came out, Crossroads Construction, Howell Excavating. We had all these people show up with all their equipment on Sunday, and we had about 20 rigs out there with grapplers and track hose picking stuff off of buildings and all this stuff. And Steve and the group come down, and they saw us all working, and it was funny what Parsons said. He goes, "This looks so organized, there's no way it's government." He was joking, but he's a funny guy, and I go, "You're right about that, Mike," you know. And we had a tremendous amount of workers. It was really heartwarming because we had, on Sunday, probably had 100 volunteers, and we had so many donations. I brought what was left. We had all new gifts for the kids, and there was so much that I dropped off a whole truckload to the police department. So, and if people are still donating new gifts, the police department is still taking gifts, and they have needy families in our county, so they won't go to waste. We appreciate what everybody did. It was absolutely overwhelming. People were bringing out lunches for everybody. We were going all over different houses. There were so many people that needed help. It was unbelievable. The interesting thing is insurance companies don't pay for debris. So debris, the barns are just blown apart, thrown all over the place. There was metal in trees, in the fields, everywhere. So people were going picking it up. And they don't pay for if one person's house gets, which did multiple houses, if one person's house gets blown off its foundation and lands in somebody else's field, they don't send people over to clean that house up in someone else's property. It's unbelievable. I mean, and the trees, they won't pay for trees unless it hits a house. So that's why we need so many volunteers. And so all this equipment was moving equipment in, and it was unbelievable. I mean, it was really cool. And St. Charles County people, they help people, and it was really cool.
Mr. Chairman, could I just mention that along those lines, Highway F will still be closed tomorrow because we have large dumpsters down there and equipment with grappling hooks and all that, but it should be open on Wednesday.
And one more thing to that, Joanne and Steve, they did step up to the plate. We had dumpsters dropped off at every person's house, multiple dumpsters. That is not, I'm going to say it's really not the county's obligation to do that, but they were like helpless and there's stuff everywhere. So we did all that, and so it was good. It was really good.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think, Joe, you called you called me, and I was sitting right next to Joanne at the time, and couldn't have been, more than 10 minutes after the
Yeah,
tornado.
we're in the thick of it, yeah, it was right,
And,
right, it was
and
storming,
you
the sirens were
called,
going
and-
off.
Well,
Yeah.
we got on the phone and started calling Chris and the chief and everybody else, and the fact is, they were already on the way. So lot of kudos to our responders there from the EMA and other parts of county government.
So what was so interesting about that, Steve, is emergency services couldn't get in, so me and Tony Frisella got our skid steers, and we were pushing all the trees out of Highway F to get the fire trucks in, and then they got in.
Yes,
and-
Joe, and Joanne was the one who said, boy, I sure hope Joe isn't out there around some live wire.
Yeah, well, they got rubber tracks, so.
'Cause we knew you were, yeah.
No, I know, she did say that, and I'm like, Joanne, I know what a wire looks like, but thank you for warning me. I mean, we were gonna get these trees out of the way, you gotta get fire rescue in here, so, yeah, it was unbelievable, it really was.
Okay, and Mr. Cronin, the credit goes to Mary Enger on the publication. She did a super job.
Good.
And last thing, Joe Brazel, I'm absolutely, totally in support of the three bills you and Dave have put in. I want to thank you for putting those in, and I'm glad to support them, even though it's a St. Louis County idea.
Ditto, yeah, good point.
So with that, I would just point out that our Highway Department Director, Craig Tukowski, is retiring after 27 years of heading the Highway Department. Does a great job. So Craig, you will be missed. We appreciate you very much and all the service that you've given to St. Charles County. And John, I assume you're hot on the heels of our next one. So that announcement soon to follow. With that, anything else for the good?
Just
Merry-
want to wish all my constituents and all county employees a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
You felt all the goodwill tonight, didn't you? It was great. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Okay.
We're dismissed.
Thank you.
No motion?
Motion to dismiss.
Second.